बंदो गुरुपदगंज कृपा सिंधु नररूप हरि महामोहतम पुंज जासुवचन रवि कर निकरा बंदो सीताराम जी पदा सकल सुमंगल मूल खास नाम वरनो कछुका जो मुँह पर अनुकूल राम नाम को रसिक जे तिन पद रज मम शीश गणपति हनुमान शुका सनकादिक हीश विधि नारद प्रहलाद ध्रुव व्यास गडज कविराय लोमश गरुड़ भुषुंड मृगो याज्ञवल्क्य भरद्वाज श्रीवाणी गिरिजादित्य जीव चराचर छोड़ राम नाम जिमि सरस प्रिय तासु चरण सिर मोर श्री राम नाम को कही सकै जानि सकै को गाओ यथा सिंधु खग चोच भरी त्रिविध धाह नहीं पाओ सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. Today we begin our discussion on Var, that is weekday. Now, before I go into the details of Var, I would just like to explain a few things which are a little chronological in nature. Whenever you read about Var weekdays on Wikipedia or in popular astrological discourses, you'll often find the statement that Var is not an indigenously Indian concept, that it has been taken from the Hellenistic and the Babylonian traditions, etc., etc., etc. The Chaldean order is not Indian in origin, etc. This is patently false. What is typically known as Chaldean order is a direct offshoot of what we see in the Surya Siddhantam. In the Surya Siddhanta, the order of planets has been very clearly discussed, and on the basis of that, the Chaldean order and the order of Varas has been decided. While I don't want to go into chronological detail right away, because this is purely a beginner session, so to say, I promise you that before we end this course, towards the end of this course, we would have proved beyond doubt that Vara is an Indian concept. Also, it was very easy to cover the entire concept of Vara Varesh, Hora Horesh, more importantly, because from the concept of Hora and Horesha, the concept of Vara and Varesha comes by. So while it was very easy and convenient to just cover it with a very clean sweep, I have decided to go a little detail. So I am beginning to get into Siddhanta a little bit today, but rest assured that my exposition of the Siddhanta will be very surface level. I'll just skim it a little bit to give you a flavor. I'm not going to go into detail, and that too I am doing so that this so-called Chaldean order can actually be shown to be arising out of our Siddhanta texts. Also note that there are a couple of points that you'll find in presentation today on which I may get some comments, so I'm making it very clear. People say that Surya Siddhanta is dated to 4th to 5th century AD. I call it bollocks. This is absolutely nonsense. Surya Siddhanta dates to before Kali Yuga. It dates to before Kali Yuga. The new Surya Siddhanta, which has been preserved in the current form, also dates to at least the 1st century AD. If you look at the text itself properly, this becomes very clear that the new Surya Siddhant, even the old Surya Siddhant, is preserved in some locations of the country. I am not at a liberty to openly say about it in this forum, but believe me, the version that was given for translation was an abridged version. That is what is called as the new Surya Siddhanta. The old Surya Siddhanta is not available for public discourse, but it is available. That text has not been lost to time. It is pretty much available. So, without getting into further detail about chronology and all that, like I mentioned, I'll talk about chronology when the time is right towards the end of the course. Let us start with Hora Horesh. First, I'll talk about the order and then I'll talk about how that order has been derived. So, to talk about the order, this is a very simple slide that you can see on my screen. So the order is Surya followed by Shukra followed by Buddha. So suddenly our minds will be a little confused that this seems a little confounding, because what have we been taught since childhood? My very educated mother just showed us 9 planets, which basically means that it is Sun, after Sun it is Mercury, after Mercury it is Venus, and then we have Earth, and between them we have Mars, Mother, just Jupiter, showed Saturn. So first we are restricting ourselves to Saturn. That is the classical way. So like I have mentioned before, when it comes to Medini Jyotish, mundane astrology, we take care of to include and incorporate planets like Varun, Arun, and Yama, which is basically Uranus, Arun, Varun, and Yama, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. But in the typical scheme of things for Jataka Jyotish, as well as for general muhurta and other classifications, we do not consider the outer planets. So essentially, we include the sun and the moon and the grahas till Shani. So what you find here is Surya followed by Shukra, followed by Buddha, followed by Chandrama. Why it is? Because when you look at from the point of view from Earth, then Buddha appears near to Earth than Chandrama. This is it appears near from a heliocentric perspective because of the orbital nature of Mercury vis-a-vis the orbital nature of Venus. So essentially, what I am telling you, Chandrama is nearest as it appears from Earth. There is no doubt about the fact that Moon appears the nearest, followed by Buddha, followed by Shukra, followed by Surya, followed by Mangala, Brihaspati, and Shani. And therefore, this is the order. Since we have started from Sunday, we start from Surya. But the order essentially is what I just told you. So, which is the closest? The closest is Chandrama, which is Moon. Which is next? Buddha, which is Mercury. Which is next? Shukra, which is Venus. What is next? Surya. Okay. What is next? Mangala, then Brihaspati, then Sunny. As seen from Earth, relative distance. As seen from Earth. As felt from Earth. We are not talking about the heliocentric distances. The distances when measured from the Sun. So what we have, if we can count it from anywhere. Once we have an order of planets, we can count it from anywhere. So say, starting with Surya, then Shukra, Buddha, Chandrama, Shani, Brihaspati, Mangal, then again Surya. Now see what happens. We have 7 grahas and we have divided into 24 parts. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Why 24 parts? The Hora is basically like Sri Varaha defines in Brihad Jatakam. Hora is Ahoratra. Ahoratra means day and night. So remove the A from the beginning and the Tra from the end, and you have Hora. So Ahoratra without A in the beginning and Tra in the end is Hora, right? So that Hora is the macro Hora, the 24 hours. Divide that by 24 and you get 24 periods of approximately 1 hour each. Why I'm
No.
saying approximately 1 hour each? Because not all day Suryodaya to Suryodaya, which is the definition of day in Jyotisha, is exactly 24 hours. Okay. So it is either a little more than 24 hours, the horas, or a little less than 24 hours. Next, you also have Dina Hora and Ratra Hora. So if you see, there is a color coding here. The first 12 horas have been showed in white, while the next 12 horas have been shown in cream. Why have I followed this color coding? Because the first 12 horas have to be calculated from Suryodaya to Suryasta. Okay, so at Suryodaya every day on a Sunday, the Surya Hora starts. Now, what happens because of this very peculiar symmetry, wherein 7 bodies, celestial bodies, I'm not saying planets because one is a star and one is a satellite, but grahas, we use the word graha in common because graha simply means the one that seizes control of the mind, seizes control of the body, and therefore makes astrology effective. Okay, so when it comes to graha, there is no doubt. When it comes to planets, there is a problem of terminology, and because English is a funny language, we'll just continue with calling them graha and not calling them
Planets.
planets. So we have 7 graha and 24 divisions. That's a problem because after 21 there is 3 remainder. So what is the remainder here? Buddha. What comes after Buddha? Chandrama. So on the next day, which is the Hora that starts from Chandrama, which is the owner of the Vara ruled by, which is the Vara ruled by Chandrama? Chandravara or Somavara. Soma also means Chandrama. Therefore, the next day becomes Monday.
Monday.
Is it clear? Or Somavara. Similarly, Monday, the final Hora before sunrise on Tuesday is Brihaspati. What comes after Brihaspati
Manga.
in this order?
Manga.
Mangala. Since Mangala comes after Brihaspati in this order, the first Hora begins next day on with Mangala Hora. Therefore, it is Mangalavara, Tuesday. Similarly, the last Hora of Mangalavara ends with the Hora of Shukra. After Shukra, the next Hora will be
Buddha.
Buddha. Okay, the order, we have to follow the order. The next Hora will be Buddha. Since the next Hora is Buddha, it is Buddhavara, Wednesday. Similarly, Brihaspatiwara, Shukravara, and Shanivara. So, on the basis of the relative distances as felt from Sun, that gives rise to this particular order, which is called the Hora Krama, also called the Chaldean order by Western philosophers and astrologers, which has often been claimed to be Babylonian in origin. It is perfectly Indian in origin. A simple perusal of Vedanga Jyotish by Lagada and Rigveda Samhita will tell you that it is purely Indian in origin. Even it is in Rigveda Samhita, we don't even have to go too far to look at. The Rigveda Samhita is accepted everywhere by all scholars in the world to be the oldest living book in existence, uncorrupted, no Shepaka. There you find the reference of Vara. How? That I'll explain towards the end of this class. That's towards the end, one of the end sessions where we can go into chronology, debates on chronology, the confusion that has been created, the fraud that has been created in the name of history by leftist historians. All of these things we'll leave for towards the end of our class because we want to focus on all the basics right now. Now we'll go a little mathematical. This is all that is there to Hora, but we'll still go a little mathematical to understand things better. So let's see. So this system is essentially grounded in classical Indian astronomy. We are using Surya Siddhanta, the new Surya Siddhanta. We can take any Siddhanta Granth. Let me be very emphatic. We can take any Siddhanta Grantha like Brahmasputa Siddhanta or Siddhanta Shiromani or Aryabhatiya and come to the same conclusion. So there is no difference in conclusion. Yeah, that is what we are going to discuss now. What is the mathematical reason behind the Hora sequence? We have already defined the Hora. It is one of the 24 proportional divisions. That too, we begin at local sunrise. First 12 Horas, they divide sunrise to sunset equally. Next 12 Horas, they divide sunset to next sunrise equally. The duration can vary seasonally because of longer days, shorter days, etc. The day lord governs the first Hora, Surya for Ravivara, Chandra for Somavara, etc. Subsequent Horas, they follow the 7 Graha sequence. Technically, planet is a misnomer here for the reasons we have already discussed. What we are emphasizing in this class today is that this sequence is not arbitrary. It is encoding in itself the geocentric distance ordering of planets as established in the Surya Siddhanta and other Siddhanta Grantha, and which can now be seen. It can be measured. We are talking about geocentric. All these calculations were done at a time when no direct measurement was possible, but the eyes were so strong and the intuition was so strong that an entire strong branch of mathematics was developed around it. But today we can see there is nothing that is stopping us from seeing it from our own bare eyes as to what is the relative distance as seen from the vantage point of Earth. Please understand, this is geocentric. Everything in astrology is geocentric because what is the vehicle we are moving on? We are moving on the vehicle called the Earth. We are not moving on the vehicle called the Sun. So, like everywhere in positional measurement, all positional measurement, be that in physics, be that in any other subject, we always consider the frame of reference. So our frame of reference is Earth, therefore geocentric. Let us see a little bit about Surya Siddhanta. Approximately, scholars consider first century BC. It is before Kali Yuga. It is the backbone of classical Indian astronomy. We assume that Surya Siddhanta is at least 6,000 years old, if not older than that. Even the existing version was somewhere edited because the Yavanas had started attacking the country to preserve the core knowledge of astrology and only astronomy and only give which was necessary to give. It was edited around the first century BCE. It defines the planetary orbits with geocentric frame of reference, and the precision is very high. For those calculations, you'll find the precision are extremely high. There are very advanced methods for computation of eclipses, planetary longitudes, and sidereal time, and very advanced concepts of spherical trigonometry are found there. The concepts which the West got to know and develop only about 1400 years later than this date, even if we consider first century BCE. So Jya, Kotijya, the sine tables of very small degreecal intervals to calculate how the angles change when it comes to the spherical triangle compared to the normal triangle, everything has been discussed. And a lot of cosmic periodicities and cycles are actually defined in terms of yugas and kalpa. Yuga and Kalpa. There is a series of Mahayuga, Mahakalpa, Kalpa, on the basis of which this is decided. So you'd be very surprised that today's value of the sidereal year is extremely reliably close to Surya Siddhanta value. We are talking so far back, and look at it, 365.258, third decimal point. That is to the thousands, it has retained its correctness. Such is the, with the modern very fine instruments we come to this. And here Surya Siddhanta and all other Siddhanta Grantha, they provide a very clear distance hierarchy underlying the Hora system. Let us see it, how it actually measures a planet's orbital circumference. What is the orbital circumference? If you so there are elliptical orbits. There are elliptical orbits. What is the circumference? Suppose there is an ellipse or a circle. You cut it in between, assume it a two-dimensional, and straighten it. The line, the length of that line, straight line that comes, is the circumference. So essentially, if the circumference is more, it means the orbit is more. If the circumference is less, then the orbit is less. So there is an inverse proportion to the number of its revolutions in a Mahayuga. Surya Siddhant gives you this is the number of revolutions a Graha will do in a Mahayuga. It gave you one number that you can remember because very simple sutras have been given. And remembering those Sanskrit sutras, you don't have to keep a table everywhere. You remember that Sanskrit sutra, you know what is the number of Mahayuga revolutions, and therefore you know the orbital size. So the more the number of revolutions in a Mahayuga, the smaller the orbit, the nearer it will appear to Sun, Earth. So how are we looking at the orbit? We are looking at that orbit as seen from Earth. We are not looking at that orbit as seen from Sun. So imagine the orbit as seen from Sun and the orbit as seen from Earth. घूमता हुआ चक्का आपका है, बाकी चीजें आपके अराउंड घूम रही है, तो आप अपने घूमते हुए चक्के से बाकी जो पाथ है वो बनाओगे. क्योंकि जितनी देर में वो घूमता है आप भी तो थोड़ा घूम जाओगे ना.
Yeah.
So the more the number of revolutions, the smaller the orbit as seen from Earth and therefore nearer to Earth. And the fewer the revolutions, the larger the orbit as seen from Earth and therefore farther from Earth. For example, for Chandra, it is given that in a Mahayuga, Chandra will do 57 million
Millions.
753,336 revolutions. सबसे ज्यादा किसका हुआ? चंद्र का. So nearest. And Shani will do 146,564 revolutions. तो सबसे दूर क्या हुआ?
Shani.
Shani. So the canonical, the rule of thumb, the general understanding of geocentric distant hierarchy is very clear. कि चंद्र सबसे नजदीक हुआ हमारे, शनि हमारे सबसे दूर हुए. ठीक है, ये बहुत स्पष्ट रूप से सूर्य सिद्धांत ने बता दिया. आगे क्या होता है इसको थोड़ा सा मैंने समझाने के लिए बताया आपको, लेकिन आई विल बी अक्यूज्ड ऑफ नॉट बीइंग ओवर सिंप्लीफाइंग, क्योंकि भारतीय सिद्धांत में जो असली सिद्धांती है अगर किसी ने थोड़ा भी सिंप्लीफिकेशन कर दिया ना उसको बहुत गाली पड़ती है. So there was someone called Daivagya Ganesh. He gave a very beautiful model of calculating the planetary orbits and planetary positions without any complicated mathematics using simple tables. 400 साल तक लोगों ने यूज किया before they went to Drikkanet. But you know what was the accusation leveled at him? दैवज्ञ गणेश ने भारतीयों को गणित विस्मृत करा दिया. दैवज्ञ गणेश by making things so simple, he dumbed down Indians. He made them forget the mathematics that was so neatly. So the actual relation is orbital circumference is given by n moon into r moon by ni. मून्स ऑर्बिट को हम एक फिक्स्ड रेफरेंस मान लेते हैं, अर्थ और मून के ऑर्बिट को एक ऑर्बिटल ग्रुप मान लेते हैं. ऐसा समझिए, इन ऑर्डर टू नॉट मेक इट कॉम्प्लिकेटेड, दो ऑर्बिट को एक ऑर्बिटल ग्रुप मान लो, टू बॉडी को वन बॉडी कंसिडर करके फिर उसके हिसाब से करते हैं. दिस इज जस्ट अ मैथमेटिकल साइड नोट, वी डोंट नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड इट. द क्रिटिकल insight was encapsulated in this slide that I explained. But if we have to be very technical, if we have to thread it to the finest whole, then this is how the actual formula will look like. But we are not concerned with the mathematics of it all. मैथमेटिक्स की जब बात होगी, जब मई में मैं सिद्धांत पढ़ाऊंगा तो छोटी सी क्लास को पढ़ाऊंगा, लेकिन वो सारे वीडियोस मैं यूट्यूब पे डाल दूंगा, तब आप वहां देख सकते हैं कि एग्जैक्टली इस चीज को हम कैसे समझ पाएंगे. सो ये दिस इनवर्स ऑर्डर ऑफ डिस्टेंस देन वी मेजर. तो ये क्या होता है? शनि, बृहस्पति, मंगल, सूर्य, शुक्र, बुध, चंद्र. शनि सबसे दूर, बृहस्पति फिर थोड़े पास, मंगल थोड़े पास, सूर्य फिर और पास, शुक्र और पास, बुध और पास, और चंद्र सबसे पास. मतलब हमें सबसे नजदीक चंद्र दिखते हैं पृथ्वी से, फिर बुध, फिर शुक्र, सूर्य, मंगल, बृहस्पति, शनि. दिस इज द ऑर्डर दैट वी गेट, राइट? नाउ this becomes our Chaldean order or Hora order or Horesha order, like you as you want to say it. उसी से मेरा वार निकलता है. So wherever I start, अब इसके नीचे एक सर्कल बना लो. Wherever I start after that. ठीक है? So if I start from Surya, what will it be? Surya, Shukra, Buddha, Chandra, Shani, Brihaspati, Mangala. Surya, Shukra, Buddha, Chandra, Shani, Brihaspati, Mangala. ये जो है आपका साइकिल बन गया. यही साइकिल को हमें that gives us the Var, Varesha, Hora, Horesha. Hora, Horesha gives you the Var name. The planet, the first Horesh of a Var becomes the Varesha also. So the first Horesh of Suryavar or Ravivar is Ravi or Surya. It is also the Varesh. So आपके रविवार के जो वारेश है वो रवि है, और पहले होरा के होरेश भी रवि है. ठीक है? इस तरह से जो मैंने आपको टेबल स्टार्ट में दिखाया था वो पूरा का पूरा टेबल हमारा बन जाता है. दिस आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड. 3 बज जाता है. दिस 3 आवर ऑफसेट इज मैथमेटिकली इनएविटेबल एंड दिस इज व्हाट हैज लेड टू द ऑर्डर ऑफ डेज. हमारा डे का ऑर्डर कभी गलत नहीं हुआ. इनफैक्ट अंग्रेजों का गलत हो गया था, इसलिए पोप को 1500 या 1600 में एक बार कुछ डे खा के आगे बढ़ाना पड़ा, बिकॉज दे रियलाइज्ड मैथमेटिकली दैट फॉल्टर्ड once the books were being translated for a different रीजन इट वाज डन, बट हमारा तो दिन का ऑर्डर वही चला आ रहा है सूर्य सिद्धांत कलयुग का प्रारंभ से। ऑल द पंचांगा दे गिव यू कली अहरगना on a particular days. How many days have passed since the beginning of Kali Yuga? When did Kali Yuga begin? The next day to when Krishna passed away. उस दिन से कलयुग का जो हो गया है तब से लेके आज तक दैट टाइम कीपिंग में परंपरा कभी खत्म नहीं हुई है, और वो टाइम कीपिंग परंपरा जो है ना उसको रखा गया है और वो हमेशा रहेगा. दैट इज द मोस्ट परफेक्ट टाइम कीपिंग पैरामीटर इन ऑल द वर्ल्ड, ऑल द एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल टेंडेंसी. सो ये सब मैं आपको बता चुका हूँ कैसे कैलकुलेट करते हैं इन अ टेबल. आई शोड इन अ टेबल बिकॉज इस तरह से स्लाइड में बताना कभी कभी समझ में आने में मुश्किल होता है. एसेंशियल क्या है? सूर्य सिद्धांत गिव्स यू द डिस्टेंस हायरार्की व्हिच इन होरा टेबल इट ट्रांसलेट्स टू अ मैकेनिकल application of distance order. The foundation is physical astronomy which has been translated into temporal timekeeping. Temporal मतलब दिन का मेजरमेंट करने के लिए, टाइम का मेजरमेंट करने के लिए, एनीथिंग रिलेटेड टू टाइम इज कॉल्ड टेम्पोरल. ठीक है, जैसे कि हम बोलते हैं ना स्पेशियल कोऑर्डिनेट्स एंड टेम्पोरल कोऑर्डिनेट्स. जब आप 4 डायमेंशनल कोऑर्डिनेट सिस्टम में चले जाते हैं, व्हेन यू स्टार्ट द स्टडीइंग ऑफ स्पेशल थियरी ऑफ रिलेटिविटी, तो सिर्फ आपका 3 डायमेंशन से काम नहीं चलता. एक्स वाई जी आर नो लॉन्गर सफिशिएंट, यू नीड टी एक्सिस आल्सो. तो हम उसको क्या कहते हैं? दिस इज द टेम्पोरल कोऑर्डिनेट्स. द स्पेस इज डिफाइंड बाय एक्स वाई जी, वहां पे स्पेस है, दैट इज द स्पेशियल कोऑर्डिनेट. तो टाइम तो मेजर हो जाता है ना, क्योंकि ज्योतिष क्या है? ज्योतिष तो काल गणना है, काल साधन है, काल शोधन है. और इसके अधिपति कौन है? महाकाल स्वयं.
महाकाल.
काल और महाकाली वही पुरुष और प्रकृति. उसके बिना तो ज्योतिष नहीं है ना, ज्योतिष तो वहीं से आता. ओके, सो एवरीथिंग डिराइव्स फ्रॉम देयर. सो फिजिकल एस्ट्रोनॉमी एंड टेम्पोरल टाइम कीपिंग हैज अ 1-to-1 कॉरेस्पॉन्डेंस इन द इंडियन स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स ऑफ ज्योतिष व्हिच इज एस्ट्रोनॉमी एज वेल एज एस्ट्रोलॉजी. आजकल कुछ लोग ज्यादा पढ़े लिखे हो गए, a lot of people who do IKS also, वो बोलते हैं इन जो इन जब वेदों के षडांग की बात करते हैं तो दे डिफाइन ज्योतिष एज एस्ट्रोनॉमी. इडियट्स. A lot of mathematics in India was defined because astronomy and astrology were never separated. If you read any of the books, they are always together. So come out of this heen manasikta, come out of this colonized mindset. Jyotisha is not just astronomy. It is astronomy and astrology and they are inseparable. में कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है, अन्योन्याश्रय संबंध है. पुरुष और प्रकृति में डिफरेंस होगा क्या? इज इट पॉसिबल दैट देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन शिव एंड शक्ति, दैट देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन राम एंड सीता? तो हो ही नहीं सकता, हो ही नहीं सकता है. उसी तरह से फिजिकल एस्ट्रोनॉमी, टेम्पोरल टाइम कीपिंग एंड एस्ट्रोलॉजी, देयर इज नो डिफरेंस. एंड दिस मेथड एक्चुअली काउंट्स रेवोल्यूशंस इन कल्प. जबकि यहाँ पे मैं 3 आवर का ऑफसेट देख रहा हूँ. माइक्रोकॉस्म, मैक्रोकॉस्म. ठीक है, जो अंदर है वही बाहर है. देयर इज नो डिफरेंस. एवरीथिंग दैट इज इनसाइड इन माय बॉडी इज देयर आउटसाइड. एवरीथिंग व्हिच इज इनसाइड आवर माइंड इज आउटसाइड. जो अंदर है वही बाहर है. दैट इज द इंडियन वे ऑफ थिंकिंग. तो सूर्य सिद्धांत में कहाँ कल्पों की बात कर रहे थे, और जो हम होरा टेबल बना रहे हैं उसमें वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट अ 3 आवर ऑफसेट. द रिजल्ट, वन इज द जियोसेंट्रिक डिस्टेंस मॉडल. कहाँ बात हो रही है? आकाश के ग्रहों की. एंड व्हाट वी हैव ट्रांसलेटेड इनटू 24 आवर डिवीजन. अब आप इसको फर्दर डिफाइन कर सकते हैं. आप इसी होरा को यू कैन डिफाइन अ होरा सिस्टम फॉर घटिका आल्सो. 1 घटी इज 24 मिनट्स. जब सूक्ष्म मुहूर्त में चले जाते हैं यू कैन डू द चतुर्विंशांश ऑफ ए घटिका. So you can do चतुर्विंशांश होरा. मुझे कोई मुहूर्त नहीं मिल रहा है, मैं उनको निकालेंगे, ऐसा निकालेंगे जिसमें कि मुझे चतुर्विंशांश ऑफ होरा एंड सप्तविंशांश ऑफ योग, I get the right one. And therefore I'll give you, this is the 30-second window. करना है तो इसमें कर लो, काम हो जाएगा. कितना भी बिकना रहा है. That level of detailing can be gone to. Okay, just to give some more mathematical periods. The revolutions are essentially 50. This is many is the number of revolutions that are given in Surya Siddhanta. And the sidereal period also you will find. Sidereal period is the time taken to actually go through एक साइकिल ऑफ द जॉडियक, उसकी हम लोग बात करते हैं, उसके हिसाब से नंबर ऑफ डेज वी कैन फाइंड आउट वन राशि एक्चुअली वी कैन फाइंड आउट वन एंटायर सर्कल साइनोडिक सर्कल के हिसाब से हमने साइडेरियल पीरियड ऑफ टाइम बना लिया. दिस साइडेरियल पीरियड आल्सो विल एक्सप्लेन एज टू व्हाट इट मींस and what are the different siddhanta and actual modern mathematical calculations around it. So what we need to know is when we say two planets are adjacent in the Siddhantic model, we don't mean adjacency in the geocentric distance ordering from revolutioning count. यहाँ क्या हो रहा है, सिद्धांतिक एडजेसेंसी तो मेंटेन हो रहा है, लेकिन टेम्पोरल रूलरशिप को इंस्टेंटेनियस क्लोजनेस मत समझिए कि इस टाइम पे ये क्लोजनेस है. दिस जस्ट अगेन अ मैथमेटिकल इनपुट फॉर पीपल हु माइट बी थिंकिंग टू मैथमेटिकली. ओके, सो दिस इज अगेन टू हेल्प यू अंडरस्टैंड, रिमेंबर दिस. इसको याद करने के लिए मैंने फिर से बना दिया है. ये आपको याद करने में मदद कर सकता है कि किस तरह से this entire thing. So you guys can take a screenshot of it to remember, or you can take a screenshot of the table. Whatever is your learning style, accordingly you can adapt. These are the chapter references I have given. In English and Sanskrit chapters, often the chapters are different, so I have given a chapter reference also. And this is just to give you a validation of the astronomical precision. This is a theoretical slides for people who want to know from Surya Siddhanta. There are limitations to Surya Siddhanta. We'll discuss, and that is why we are not into Siddhantic Ganit. We are into Jig Ganit. उस पे भी बात करेंगे कभी अगर मौका मिलेगा. What are the limitations of Surya Siddhanta and why those limitations have come by? They have come by because of time, and because we use a lot of linear parameters when what we need to do is a lot of exponential parameters. अगला है कि हम सीरीज एक्सपेंशन में कहाँ तक जाते हैं. Accordingly, we can decide how accurate the Siddhantic calculations can be. Essentially, the perspective is the numbers describe the heavens and interpretation turn number into meaning. Now that meaning can be macrocosmic in nature, that meaning can be microcosmic in nature. That meaning can cover great deal of time and space, and that meaning can be used to conveniently cover a smaller bits of time and space. So संस्कृत में और हिंदी में आप सबने सुना होगा पिंड और ब्रह्मांड में कोई फर्क नहीं है. What is there in पिंड? A small physical body, a small body, a small person. What is there in ब्रह्मांड? The entire universe. All of this are essentially the same. They always come together. When they say when you master pranayama, you can move planets. What does it mean? Yeah, you can move planets. A true yogi can move planet. A true yogi can do anything. ऐसा क्यों होता है? क्योंकि वही चीज है. You have just understood the science and mechanics of how to implement the unity and the absolute complete similarity between the pinda and the brahmanda. Jyotish bhi wahi hai. From everything that goes around in the universe. In Jyotisha, if you read Brihat Samhita, then you can use where an asteroid is seen, which sign an asteroid is seen when seen from another. That can become very important transit implication for individual horoscopy also. You can use a lot of mathematical points which has been given as upagraha. All of that can be used. And for what? Can be used for understanding the world around us. Medini. Can be used for understanding weather using concepts like weather prediction using Ardra Pravesha Chakra. That can also be used to understand how the life of a particular individual will be, how the life of a particular nation will be. Okay? कितना बड़ा विस्तार है. It can also be understood to understand when there will be a volcano eruption, when there will be a tsunami, when there will be an earthquake, how the financial markets will move. Yatha Pinda Tattva Brahmanda. There is no difference. There is absolutely no difference. Hora Lagna is a special kind of Lagna that is used in Jaimini Jyotish. The calculations are based on the calculation of Horas only. And there is a particular way in which this can be used. This can be done. Yeah, that's a good question because I think lunar list. So why are we even using the Western calendar? Purely because of convention. Because there was the European countries have ruled over a lot of nations for a long time, and because of all the symmetry and the need for symmetry during a globalized times, we follow the English calendar. But we must understand our calendar. Once we understand our calendar, we understand what a beautiful day it is. Ideally, the prime meridian should always have been on Ujjain. The prime meridian should always have been in Ujjain.
Oh,
The same
Mahakali.
meridian which also goes through Lanka, which will not Sri Lanka, which is somewhere deep in the ocean, because it has to be absolutely on the same as Ujjain, and which has to be Shata Yojanas, 100 Yojana in expanse. So current Sri Lanka is not 100 Yojana in expanse. So it is somewhere deep in the ocean, but mathematically every text has talked about Lankodaya, which is the rising of the stars, the rising of the nakshatras, and the rising of the signs where at equator on the same line as the Ujjain meridian. So, where are they in Lanka? In the and that Lanka will always be very near to the equator. That is the equatorial projection. So in Lagada Jyotish, we use the Sauramana and the Nakshatramana. ये सौरमान and Nakshatramana is essentially one measurement along the ecliptic and one measurement along the celestial equator. If we project that measurement from the ecliptic to celestial equator and sum it up over the years, क्या होगा? That and further a lot of very intense and advanced calculations were done in the ancient Siddhanta. Lot is lost, but a lost lot is retained. And it is our duty to again learn everything that is lost because the books are there. The books are there. The first step, like I mentioned, is actually to start everything with an understanding of the basics, and that is what we are doing. So that was all from my side today. If one of you have questions, you can ask, and after that we can see if any of the our visitor questions we might have missed.
So, sir, I have a question. Like nakshatra and tithis have lords and deities. Do horas also have deities? Lord, of course, they have.
वही हो गया ना, जो जिसका हो रहा वही हो. So what is hora? Hora is 1 hour in the day.
Right.
So आप कह सकते हैं द्वादश हो रहा, द्वितीय हो रहा, चतुर्थ हो रहा. हु इज द होरेश? जिसका हो रहा चल रहा है हो रहा, वो होरेश.
Right. तो वो लॉर्ड हो गया. But
वही लॉर्ड.
deities.
हाँ, उसका डेटीज का मुझे आइडिया. आई डोंट थिंक एनी बुक डिस्कस अबाउट द डेटीज ऑफ होरास, बट यू कैन यूज द अधिदेवता. सो एवरी ग्रह हैज एन अधिदेवता. यू कैन यूज द अधिदेवता कॉन्सेप्ट, वो मिल जाएगा. अधिदेवता के कॉन्सेप्ट से आप कर सकते हैं, बट जरूरत नहीं होती इन कोस्ट ऑफ द कैलकुलेशंस दैट वी एक्चुअली डू फॉर मुहूर्त एंड अदर पर्पसेस. वी डोंट actually need to go to the deities in most of the cases. We don't need वो. दैट इज अ गुड टू नो. बट हमें क्या होता है, जया, सिद्धार्थ, रिक्ता, तिथि, वी गेट टू नो अबाउट the classification of that tithi. That tells us a lot. Mood texts are further classified which vara is good for which thing, which nakshatra is good for which thing, which tithi is good for which thing. So we have enough and more material. क्योंकि अगर आप, मैं deities पे इतना फोकस क्यों नहीं करता, because a lot of people talk about deities in nakshatra a lot, but do you understand that nakshatra devta properly? आप अहिर्बुद्धि को समझते हैं क्या? बहुत लोग अहिर्बुद्धि पे बड़े बड़े वीडियो बनाते हैं. When you are using Deva Tattva, you have to understand the Deva Tattva. एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग दिस देव तत्व इज नॉट इजी. ये देव तत्व तो बहुत ज्यादा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है. सुनैना जी, योर क्वेश्चन विल बी आंसर्ड व्हेन वी डिस्कस अबाउट द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ काल चक्र, काल पुरुष towards the end of this course. That is the advanced concept of entire काल चक्र, कि कैसे सबका क्षय होता है, कैसे अयन जो होते हैं वो हमारे पितरों का क्षय करते हैं, कैसे जो वर्ष होता है वो देवताओं का क्षय करते हैं, अल्टीमेटली कल्प कैसे ब्रह्मा का क्षय करते हैं, एंड ऑल दैट. सो देयर इज अ वेरी क्लियर कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ काल पुरुष. देयर इज अ वेरी क्लियर कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ काल चक्र. यूजिंग द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ काल चक्र वी कैन डू अ लॉट अबाउट दीस थिंग्स. तो काल चक्र का कॉन्सेप्ट हम यूज
Sir,
करके
on what basis Hora can be Shubh or Ashubh?
बेसिक समझ लीजिए. क्रूर ग्रह का हो रहा है तो खराब है, सौम्य ग्रह का हो रहा है तो अच्छा है. ये बेसिक मान लीजिए. सौम्य ग्रह क्या हो गए, विच आर द सौम्य ग्रह? सो
Shukra,
चंद्र,
Chandra,
चंद्र when it is more than 72 degree away from the sun on either side,
right?
be that कृष्ण पक्ष विजय अब शुक्ल पक्ष.
Yeah,
बुध if it is with a सौम्य or staying alone.
not afflicted.
Venus, that is Shukra. Jupiter, that is Guru. All these grahas are Saumya grahas, which are Krura grahas. Chandra, if within 72 degree of Surya.
Surya.
Buddha, if with another Krura. Then Surya, Mangala, and Shani. So, accordingly, उस समय देख के आप पता कर सकते हैं कि सूर्य की हो रहा है तो क्रूर हो रहा है. अब क्रूर हो रहा है is not necessarily bad हो रहा है.
Right.
Because Surya is Krura, but Surya is not Papa. In
Papa.
the therefore, things that require stern action. आपको unfortunately business में नुकसान हो रहा है, कुछ लोगों को निकालना है. That is a business decision. However unfortunate that might be. So सूर्य हो रहा है is a perfect Hora to do something like that.
Hmm.
आपको कोई यज्ञ आदि करने हैं और अगर आपको सारा मुहूर्त जुपिटर गुरु हो रहा मिल गया, बहुत अच्छा. आपको चिकित्सा करनी है, यू वांट टू डू सम हेल्थ रेमेडिएशन एंड यू गेट इट only because of Venus. हो जाता है. Surya Siddhanta is applicable to all yugas. The modern Surya Siddhanta has been specifically rewritten with the purpose of understanding the Kali Yuga, so that we can calculate from Kali Ahargana. हर युग के हिसाब से सूर्य सिद्धांत में बदलाव कर दिए जाते हैं ताकि उस युग के लोग समझ सके. और जितने लोग मूर्ख होते जाते हैं उतना सिंप्लीफाई किया जाता है. बिकॉज कलयुग वी हैव माइक्रोस्कोपिक साइज्ड ब्रेन्स, देयरफॉर
Right.
इट इज सिंप्लीफाइड अ लिटिल मोर.
Right.
That is how it is done. Rahu Kalam will talk. When we talk about day, we'll talk about Rahu Kalam. And then I'll also tell you that Rahu Kalam is not mentioned in any scripture. The other thing that is mentioned is lost out of imagination. About 40 years back, 20 years back, no one in North India knew what is Rahu Kalam.
Hmm.
Yes, South India have a concept. Now people in North India also have started using it. But there is absolutely no scriptural basis to Rahu Kalam. I'll discuss what actually has scriptural basis. Certainly not Rahu Kalam. ओके. चंद्रमान एंड नक्षत्र में एक कितना अभी बहुत टाइम है, रुकिए सब बताते हैं. सो विल टॉक अबाउट ऑल ऑफ दिस. चांद्रमान, सौरमान, नक्षत्रमान, एवरीथिंग, एंड दीज आर ऑल फ्रॉम लगधर. महर्षि लगधर हैज अ वेरी रिफाइंड सिस्टम ऑफ मैथमेटिक्स और वेदांग ज्योतिष. ये सब वेदांग ज्योतिष में काम करता है. इन आवर पर्पसेस बहुत ज्यादा इसका यूज भी नहीं. ठीक है. Yeah, your teacher was right because there is nothing like Rahu Kalam, at least not in, it is in tradition, so I am not dismissing it. But what is more importantly mentioned in the Murta Grantha as tradition is something that has been missed. So Rahu Kalam concept is found in South. We'll discuss what it is. We'll also discuss what should be incorporated, what has been missed in the later classes. Like you know, we are going a little slow here, slow, but and that slowness is deliberate because we want to spend more time with every concept rather than shifting, and shifting. No, we'll talk in detail. Everything is clearly there in the text, in the Rishi texts. We just have to follow the Rishi text. The biggest damage that has happened in today's world is that Vedanga Jyotish has been dubbed as a semi-scientific text.
Yeah.
मूर्खता युग के हिसाब से बहुत एडवांस है. So that foolishness has come by. If we start discussing about Vedanga Jyotish, this entire session will become very, very difficult because everything is discussed from right ascension, from the negative angles in spherical geometry, in northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere. What is rising at what speed? Sigrodaya, Mandodaya, Madhyamodaya. What are the signs? What are the changing speed of rising of signs from equator to the poles? How does it change when we go from equator to north pole? How does it change when we go from equator to the south pole? All of these things are discussed in by Lagadar. And he talks about the different meanings of yoga. How can there be a 5 year yoga or a 1 year yoga or a 6 month yoga or a 1 month yoga? How does it differ? Any attempt to do the astrological dating of the Grantha of our itihasas cannot be done without the understanding of Lagadha and his cycle of time. So a lot of things are there. We can't discuss all of them here because
Sure.
unfortunately the moment we go into Sauramana, Nakshatramana, Chandramana, Barhaspatямana, the mathematics becomes complicated and I want it to be still relatable and approachable to everyone. For those who are interested in mathematics, we like I said, we'll be discussing with a very small group of about 50 people who can handle advanced mathematics. But all the videos will be uploaded on YouTube. That happens towards the end of May, so we have some time to reach there. Yeah, are there any other questions? I think there are no other questions. Can one of you actually check?
No, sir. You've covered everything. There are coming more questions.
Okay, then. So we'll call it a day, we call it a night, depending on where you are. All the
Yeah.
best, everyone. Hopefully, we'll see you again on Sunday. Unfortunately, there has been some delays in completing classes, and I understand why it is happening. When I was checking, I announced these classes in a slightly bad mood. I should have waited. I should have checked. So that is why there are some bilamba that is happening. And yeah, so that's all for now. Take care. Namaskar.
Okay.
Hopefully,
Thank you.
with this, we'll meet again on
Nam
Sunday.
sir.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.